have another 3 panels. First one on water challenge, the second one on healthy diet for healthy life, the last one, climate challenge. So stay put. My name is Claire Chen, and I'm from NCURA, National Council of University Research Administrators. We also represented BILAT USA 4.0, who put today's workshop together. And you heard from my colleague Jessie Zito earlier. So without further ado, let's start the first panel. Dominique and Van Card.
So, hello everybody, I'm Dominique Darmondriel. I'm the Water Joint Programming Initiative Coordinator. So you heard about already 3. The 4th is about water challenges. So we are dealing with freshwater and transitional waters. So the 4% of the waters which are drinkable. So it's not really a new challenge. I was asked to give one of my quotes, and one of my favorite is from Benjamin Franklin, and he said that in wine there is wisdom, that's for after. In beer there is freedom, and in water there is bacteria. So as the others, we have a strategic research agenda. We are running a couple of activities like joint calls, coordinating project at the national level, connecting researchers and research communities, giving access to infrastructure. So that's the little bit what we are doing all around this freshwater and transitional, but we have also some activities in common with other JPIs. We started with FACE, because 70% of the water, of the fresh waters, are consumed for agriculture, forestry, or freshwaters, aquaculture. And we are planning some activities also with antimicrobial resistance and oceans on emerging pollutants, but I will come back to that later on.
I'm Venkat Lakshmi. I'm the program director at NSF for Hydrologic Sciences. And as you can see, this is the first time I'm doing this kind of a forum. So I mistakenly prepared a lot of slides. So you got to sit through slides. So I'll just go and advance it and just speak from there. I think I can speak loud enough. Okay, so so what I did was I tried to give a bit of the questions which we have in water. And this is not just specific to NSF. This is based on challenges and opportunities in hydrologic sciences. It's a National Academy report of 2012. It's a little dated. The website is down here below, and you can actually download this, this file. So if you look at it, there are 3 distinct areas of challenges and opportunities in hydrologic sciences. One of them is water cycle. The second is water and life, and then third is clean water for people and ecosystems. And I'll actually give you 2 examples, illustrated cartoon examples of it. So in the water cycle, if you look at it, some of the key words in this page are very important. Recharge, because we always talk about groundwater and how the world is running out of groundwater. And recharge is a very important aspect of groundwater dynamics and groundwater budgets, because one of the things which cannot be observed directly is groundwater. And I mean, you can dig wells and observe it, but it's very expensive. And the thing which cannot be observed at all is recharge. It's difficult to observe recharge, so you model recharge. The second thing is connections of water cycle to climate and land cover changes, and something which has gained a lot of attention and a lot of questions associated with this and the water cycle. With water and life, the big questions revolve around eco-hydrology and how water cycle plays a big role in ecosystems. And lastly, clean water for people and ecosystems, the big question is on contaminant transport. So one of the most interesting things which has happened in the last, I would say 200 years, is construction of dams. And you can see United States, 1800 to 2000, and these are dots. Obviously, the dots are pretty large. It doesn't really signify the area doesn't signify the area of the dam, but you can see that the whole of the United States is covered with dams. And what happens is that the resulting globally with all these dams is the stored amounts of runoff. So there's a lot more storage of water. And storage of water means a lot of evaporation of water and losses of water as well. And also, what it means is that diversion of water for hydropower or diversion of storage of water in the Aswan Dam or use for irrigation of crops all result in changes in downstream flow. And this downstream flow is pretty important for many other reasons. Now, if you look at Europe, and we're talking about JPI, so Europe, there's a lot of dams in Europe. And there are a lot of dams which are modifying the hydrological cycle in Europe. One of the biggest problems in the dam construction is, and a lot of people are focusing on it, lots of NGOs and the World Bank, is the lower Mekong and the Mekong River Basin. Lots of dams have already been constructed in China. There are dams being constructed in all over the place, in Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, etc. And in the next 50 years, the Mekong will have a different flow regime than it had 50 years ago. So if you think about it, Mekong will not be the same. And one of the important things in Mekong River Basin is that fine silt, the fine sediment which flows down and floods on the floodplains and helps grow all those crops. So that will be missing. The second one, which I said, another example was the arsenic contamination of groundwater. This is by natural erosion of minerals, pyrite minerals in the foothills of the Himalayas, and it comes down to Bangladesh, and it does not oxidize if there is no oxygen. But when the water dries up, when they pump water out of the tube wells, it results in oxidation and arsenic is liberated. And it has been a big problem in the last 30 years in Bangladesh of arsenic contamination. And so the Hydrologic Sciences program at NSF is one of the aspects, that's the one I'm a program director in, but we also do things with engineering. So the example of these projects are out here: groundwater, snow water equivalent, droughts and floods, ecosystem, wetlands, ecology, and ecohydrology and climate change, landslides, water allocation. One of the most interesting parts, connecting JPI water and JPI Fachi, is Infuse, and I did mention it in a question to the speakers. And Infuse is innovations in the nexus of food, energy, and water systems. And I'll just quickly go down to this last one and end my talk here. The issue of dams, which was brought up in the previous slides, actually has a big connection between Infuse and hydrology, because dams are built for food, for irrigation, for agriculture, as well as for energy, hydropower, and they modify the water cycle. So you can think of these problems with dams as one of the reasons why, we will have a changing view of hydrology. And I'll stop here and answer questions.
Thank you, Venkat. And Dominique, out of all this rich information, could you maybe give us a few words or identify some common interest topic that you're interested in collaborating with National Science Foundation?
So that's for sure. Infuse is one of the hot topic for us. We have been discussing this a couple of times, and not only with the NSF. So I would like to mention that we discussed also this with USDA NIFA. And this morning we had a meeting with the State Department, and that was also something we discussed. It's even a little bit broader in terms of impact or potential impacts, because you can apply this in cities. And when you see the growing cities, that could be a very important issue. But we have also to deal with rural areas, with small communities, and this type of approach about the nexus and to have innovative solution for the different situation is really, really important for us. So this is definitely in the top, I would say 3 of the possibility to exchange with US, and if we have a couple of others, I must say. We also discuss emerging contaminants or pollutants. I never know which one you are using, because in Europe and in France we are making a difference between. But definitely this is also the top in the top 3. And most probably the other will be something about the Earth observation connecting to the local measurements. We have a lot of data there for reporting on food security, or to report on the water basin quality, and how to deal with this data, how to connect with some information coming from the citizens with the new apps, or everybody wants to report back, how we can make this feasible and collect even more data, but get the better use of this. That will be, I would say, the three. And those topics are quite similar from different agencies we met during this week.
And for National Science Foundation, for Vanguard, I have a very, I guess it's a little tricky question. I know you might have already had some international collaboration with other countries and other programs. Out of all these existing programs, what would you say to all the JPIs here? What's a lesson learned out of the international collaboration you already had?
So one of the very interesting international collaborations which is currently ongoing is the engineering directorate runs a competition with the NSF China. And this year's theme of the competition is innovations in food, energy, and water. And we currently are actually in the process of reviewing proposals. Actually, we're going to start in a few weeks. So I cannot tell how surprised some of us were when we saw so much interest between in both United States and China on these in these proposals, because it was even more difficult because a PI in United States had to have a PI partner in China, and they had to submit the same or similar proposal to their agencies, and so they're jointly reviewed, and only the top ones. You have to rank top, and both of them have to can be funded. So I can see that in the case of water or food, energy, and water, there is a lot of interest globally, and this could also translate into something we could do with JPI.
Good, thank you. And so the one last question from me, and then we will open the floor up to the audience, is what's next? How do you envision the collaboration with JPI Water?
So one of the very interesting things we discovered in our meetings yesterday was that the 2019 call, which Dominique is working on, we may be able to get in the ground floor in some of their planning meetings. And secondly, the JPI Water was very happy to learn about two programs which NSF runs. One is RAPID, which is giving funding for quick collection of data, like when you have a flood and you want to collect the high water marks or where the sediments have been deposited, data which will be lost after a few days. This is RAPID proposals, which are not large amounts of money, but enough to carry out the observations. And the second one is how the career proposals or how career for young investigators is funded. So these are some of the areas where we are thinking of collaborating.
And Dominique, anything to follow up?
Yeah, just to precise, probably the topic of the call we were mentioning. This is the one on emerging pollutants, which will cross across sectors, but also different from marine to freshwater environments. So for us, it's a huge topic, and that has been already raised during the previous discussion. I'm guessing you heard that several times. So that will be very nice if we can have the Americans on board on that part, definitely. What Venkat said about RAPID, this quick emergency response, this is something we have been trying to do there, and we didn't succeed so far. So I'm guessing we will learn a lot about how to do that. About career, that's also something very important. In Europe, we were thinking about having calls for young researchers to promote this and to enlarge a little bit their contribution to to science and innovation. So that's, I think, something that we can also work on that part. We would like also to work on what we call a knowledge hub, which is here RCN. I'm also learning in the learning phase with all your acronyms. So these research collaboration coordination network. You see, I'm not that good. I think we have one starting on emerging pollutants right now, meeting for the first time, the seed group meeting in 2 months. And we were exchanging with several of you, several agencies on how we could connect networks of American researchers. on that part, and I'm guessing that will be of interest for other JPIs also. So that's something we will try to develop in the future, in the, I would say, short future. We do hope on that part.
Thank you. And I can already see two of you are sitting so close together. So we will see the collaboration happening tomorrow. So without any delay, I want to open up the floor for the audience. If there's any questions.
Chuck.
Chuck Estabrook, National Science Foundation. This is more of just a comment. I think the concept of the JPIs is I think other agencies have known about JPIs for a while, but at NSF, it's kind of we're just now coming on board with this, and I think that this could be a very good mechanism for collaboration with Europe. Because right now, many investigators are confused when it comes to how do you collaborate with Europe? Do you just do it one country at a time? But this is a mechanism where you can do lots of countries at once. And I think that this is a very good way forward.
Yeah, with this you can work with 22 full members, 3 observers, 5 Beyond Europe associate partners. Just to mention, we have a new full member coming from South Africa. So you see, we are no longer fully European. So it's really working beyond Europe or the European Union. We have at least now 5 members from outside the EU. So, and this is because the water challenges are global. So same priorities in all the countries.
One last question. It's gentleman in front. Oh, we will take 2 questions. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Beta Day. I'm from the State Department. I just had a quick question, I guess, echoing the initial question that was made during the food security panel of with issues of water, obviously there are certain political components to it or that complex problems that add to that. In JPI, is it within your mandate to work on those issues? And if so, could you expand on that? And if not, then...
Yeah, so as the others, we have we developed and we are also on an ongoing process for revising our strategy, research and innovation agenda, and this is a quite open process. We are working with our boards. As Jackie mentioned, we have advisory boards, scientific or stakeholders, but we also run some public consultation, totally open. So now we have also to work on the answers and what they are providing. And we are trying to integrate as much as possible all the new issues or even the comments on we didn't enough like this or this. There was, for example, we had a lot of comments from South Africa, but other countries saying, well, when you are reading our strategic research agenda, it looks very European or developed country. And you should think about having some chapters about what's going on in the developing countries or less developed. And so we are in this process, and we will use our new members, for being able to do that. So a couple of new issues are coming. Science diplomacy, for example, was one of the topics they would like to include. Nevertheless, our strategic research agenda is shared with others. We are not implementing everything. So we're also trying to push others to take on board some of the issues. So not only the European Commission, but some other partners. It could be foundations. It could be other type of, research funders. So that's the way we are proceeding at the moment.
So I just wanted to add one thing to it. So even in United States, there's always I won't call it water wars, but water disagreements. The recent one was between the state of Georgia and Alabama and Florida. I mean, I'm sure you have read it in the newspaper. So these are only going to become more when you have less water. So even though we're not different countries, but you have these issues even in the United States.
And there's one last question on the gentleman.
I'm Bob Hershey. I'm a consultant. To what extent are you able to use the internet to have your meetings and get together funding for projects and get together the data so people know what they're getting from the joint effort?
So that's for me. Well, I would say I'm working with internet all the time. You cannot connect with almost 30 countries with traveling all the time. So we are connecting like this. We are even using webinars for some of our calls to explain the calls. We did a training with scientists on one side, PIs and innovators. That was not that successful. That's one thing. The second part for you, it's the question I mentioned before about the big data. One of the key elements at the moment and the key discussion with some of our stakeholders are how we could integrate citizens' data, so using apps, in our networks, observatories, and infrastructure. And how we combine those different data. We are validating them. We are integrating them in some modeling, in decision making. So that's one key issue. The point we are discussing at the moment with not only the European Commission but also some of our, I would say, enterprises, public and private, because the water sector is balanced between the private sector and the public, is that it's of most interest for them. So this one was one of the topic they raised, and so we are trying to see if we could partner in a way or another on that point. For the moment, the JPIs are public partnership, and we have to deal with some specific rules in Europe and in our agency, so we have to cope with this before moving forward. But I can develop then later on if you want. This is about state aid.
So in addition to webinars, which Dominique already mentioned, sometimes panels at NSF are also virtual, so you can participate in it through the internet. So there is a considerable use of this in our work.
Definitely.
And thank you. I think, Dominique, would you like to share one more quote for the audience?
I was asked, that's so we are moving to another country. And the last one is from Nelson Mandela. Access to water is a common goal, essential to the social, economic, and political affairs of the country, the African continent, and the world. It should be a lead sector for cooperation for world development. It always seems impossible until it's done. So welcome on board.
Thank you.